All right, joining me now to talk about the GOP getting it back together, stopping socialism, putting America first, we have the great Katie Pavlich, editor at townhall.com and Fox News contributor, and Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor and star of Stage, Screen, and Television at 6 p.m.
He also
this
dances,
week,
I hear.
and doing a great job. Katie, I begin with you. That is my view. They have a terrific opportunity. The liberal media and some conservatives are piling on the Republicans, but there's an opportunity here. What you think?
There is a big opportunity. I like what you're saying about moving forward. There are a number of Republicans who have officially announced today that they want to be in the race for Speaker. Congressman Steve Scalise is one of them. Jim Jordan, who is in charge of the House Judiciary Committee, is another one. And quite frankly, if you look at the way that the speakership vote went down the first time, a lot of people were arguing that Steve Scalise should have been in the running for Speaker in January, not this belated situation. But there are some hard realities about the way the House is functioning now. Despite Kevin McCarthy leaving, that doesn't change the numbers that they have in the House. Republicans have a 5-seat majority. It is a very difficult position to be in. And when you have this vote that you can have one person essentially eject the Speaker, they have some work to do, and whether they will agree to voting to repeal that rule is going to be necessary in order to move forward with the 5-seat majority. But Republicans also have an opportunity to govern more like Nancy Pelosi did.
Got to be.
She never had this problem. She wanted to seek power. She got power. She wanted to solidify power for Democrats across the country. And Republicans could learn from that unity as well.
By the way, I offered her my office upstairs. So far, I haven't heard anything back. Whoever the next speaker is, they have got to make a condition that this one vote vacate thing is over.
What if they say no?
Got to say.
What if these 8 people say no?
Then they don't do it. You can't do it. I mean, they'll win. You'll win on that, Charlie. I mean, they just have to come out and say that, and the whole world will support them. The whole world will support them, except for eight insurrectionists.
Yeah. So I love everything about your opening there, and especially the part about Kevin McCarthy took one for the team.
Yeah.
If he wanted to drag this thing out, he could have dragged this thing out for months.
Good point.
And he would have had a good reason for doing it. And I certainly wouldn't have blamed him for keeping it up. But that said, I think that if you were to identify the one sin of the McCarthy reign, it was, look, we knew we were going to have some kind of shutdown, some kind of impasse, either with Democrats or with these 8 holdouts. The moment he became Speaker. And at that moment, Speaker McCarthy needed to define what it was he was going to go to the wire over. And it should have either been spending, I would say, over the border. And so whoever the next speaker is needs to be willing to let Democrats shut down the government if they don't want to fund the border, or if they don't want to cut spending, or if they don't want to, or if they love Ukraine so much that they won't let anything else happen until they give all this money to Ukraine. And that's what whoever the next speaker is going to be has to do.
Border in Ukraine. Border, Ukraine, regular order, appropriation.
Yeah.
The senators have done nothing. I want to make that point. The Republicans have 4 out of 12 appropriation bills, covers 80% of the budget. The other 8 will flow. There's no big issues there. They will flow through the Appropriations Committee and the regular budget order. You're saying, I want to get you both, because I think this is the key. Yeah. 2 issues, Ukraine, border, okay? Ukraine right now, Katie, there was no money. There was 0 money in the continuing resolution for Ukraine. So that's where we are. Now, that can continue, but as leverage, the Republicans can say, okay, we'll negotiate some number, but you have to have a diplomatic initiative. There's got to be people on the front lines trying to figure out some kind of peace deal, because right now, this is Joe Biden's war, and they are doing nothing to promote a peace deal. You got Donald Trump out there saying, if you elect me, I'll do it in 24 hours. I think a lot of people in the GOP are thinking the same thing. I myself don't want to cut the Ukrainians off, but this is a chance for leverage to get this albatross out from over us.
Well, and this is something that the White House is on their heels on. I mean, you've had for weeks on end the White House saying that they were confident that this money would get pushed through. This week you had John Kirby coming to the press briefing room trying to encourage Republicans to vote for this. And it's an easy argument to make to the American people who can see these 11,000 people with their own eyes coming over the border to say, we will help fund Ukraine's defense and their borders, but we need to also, at the same time, be funding our own defense against what is happening, not just in the southern states, but in cities all across the country.
Package deal? What you think?
Well,
package
some
deal?
Republicans, including Matt Gaetz, would argue they shouldn't be a package deal, that you should put border security out there first and still have no funding for Ukraine. I think.
And let Democrats shut it down because it doesn't include the funding. Fine. And then we can run on that. It's not like we're getting a whole lot done anyway.
Which speaker would do that? Which speaker would do that? Put you on the spot. Have some fun. I'm not going to hold you.
So I think that
no one's looking.
I think Jim Jordan would do that.
Do it.
I pray that Steve Scalise has learned the lesson. I also like the idea of Steve Scalise because he is the face of Democrat violent extremism, and I love that story. And I think that they should be reminded of that every single day that he survived what they spawn out there. But I do think that Jim Jordan would, anybody has to learn that lesson.
And they got to say, I should have put this in my riff, but they've got to say we are going to continue the impeachment inquiry. I think that's a very important point. When we rewrite the riff for publication, I want to put that in. One of the producers will do that. They're brilliant at it. But I'm just saying that has to be emphasized, too. Democrats hate the impeachment inquiry.
They do, because it goes to a lot of places that are dark for President Joe Biden, and they put so much stake behind his reelection campaign, exposing the things that he has done with his family and the corruption they've engaged in and lied about for years. It's something they don't want. But the other thing, going back to the government shutdown issue, Republicans have to stop giving into this idea that a government shutdown is the end of the world and something you have to panic about. It's actually not that big of a deal. I've been through a number of them living in Washington, D.C., and in fact, there's a whole lot of people who are deemed unessential. So they get paid, but then they're told not to show up to work.
I missed 2 paychecks. I got it back.
Oh, you got it back eventually. So you're basically there. You get paid for doing.
January of 2019. It was very cold.
Okay.
The only thing more irrelevant to the average taxpayer than a government shutdown is a congressional shutdown. I mean, they took the entire month of August off.
It's
Nobody's going to be
not the end
missing
of the world. And they are able to carve out funding for essential items like Social Security checks, the military, and in fact, in the lead up to the threat of this shutdown, they carved out Ukraine funding. No border funding, but Ukraine funding. So the Republicans have to push back on that and giving into, if we don't keep the government open, the end of the world is coming.
All right, I want to move on. I've got a juicy, we got some sound. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., some sound, please.
I want to tell you now what I've come to understand after 6 months of campaigning. There is a path to victory. So how are we going to win against the established Washington interests? It's not through playing the game by the corrupt rules that the corrupt powers and the vested interests have rigged to keep us all in their thrall. Instead, we're going to have to rewrite the assumptions and change the habits of American politics.
All right. So he's going to run as an independent, I think, October 9th in Philadelphia, I think. A bunch of us had dinner with him, Committee to Unleash Prosperity, 3-ish, 4-ish weeks ago. Very gracious, very smart fella. He's not one of us. He's not conservative, although he's for tax cuts and tougher spending, and he's against shutdowns and so forth. Katie Pavlich, if he runs as an independent, who's hurt and who's not hurt?
Well, I've heard Trump supporters say they like this candidate. I've heard Biden supporters say they're very upset that he is not capable of being in a real primary with the current incumbent. So I think that it dings both sides of the political aisle. But if you take a look at his platform, he's certainly not conservative. And although he says he wants tax cuts, his climate change agenda, which requires lots of central planning and taking money from Americans and giving it to the rest of the world, doesn't really reconcile with his plans for lower taxes.
No, you're quite right. I asked him. I mean, I've known him for quite some time. He used to come on another show on a different network, but I said, would you raise taxes the way Joe Biden did? And I reminded him that his uncle JFK slashed taxes. I wrote a book on the subject. And he said lower taxes, but he didn't really go into any detail. I think he hurts Biden more than he hurts Trump.
I agree, without a doubt. But
I mean, the Bidenites, they're worried about this. They don't like this one bit.
Oh, I think it'd be devastating for them. But that said, a lot of what he said, especially in that clip you just played, is stuff that Donald Trump has been talking about.
Yeah.
And if you took all the people out of the mix and just had that platform, 90% of Americans would be like, yeah, that guy, they would love it. But I think one of the reasons that so many conservatives and Trump supporters like RFK is because what we have seen over the last couple of years with the Democrat Party and where they have gone, they've gone to peak insanity, where they're, mutilating children and they don't believe in law and order, and they're using the Justice Department to go after they want to jail their political enemy. That people are just like, okay, uncle, just give us a normal Democrat, please.
No, that's
Someone
right.
else.
There's some old line Democrats left who think, I think Charlie's hit it. And also, Kennedy has a magic name still. I know it's a long time, but still, last point.
I also think that people are tired of, what called the establishment or the political industrial complex shutting out people who want to run for office in a country where you should be able to run for president if you would like to. And he's running, but he's being shut out of the process on the left because they're not willing to have a debate, while at the same time not willing to have Joe Biden out there actually campaigning. He's doing nothing.
I would like to nominate Katie Pavlich.
No, thank you.
In a nanosecond. She can run a large department. Or Sam Bankman-Fried will pay you $5 billion not to run. How's that?
I'll take that.
We'll take
as long as I have to give it back once he's in prison for fraud or something.
Here in New York, you'll be taxed at 55%. Katie Pavlich and Charlie Hurd. And don't forget, Charlie this week co-hosting The Bottom Line with Dagan McDowell, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fox Business. He's doing a hell of a job.